Hello, everyone. This is Robert Landau, Live Life Well TV host with another episode of America's Greatest Personalities. Every week on Live Life Well TV, we come to you with a different great American personality. This episode, it is my pleasure to speak to you about one of my personal favorites, the one, the only Mr. Gene Kelly. So, how would I describe Gene Kelly? Well, here are just some of the ways. Gene Kelly was timeless, elegant, passionate, energetic, innovative, truthful, a perfectionist, and always a consummate professional. Gene Kelly was responsible for any and all of the following. Gene Kelly single-handedly revived the fine art of the American movie musical, that genre. He also refined the art of dance on screen. He wouldn't only be known for his incredible dancing, but he would also be known for his astounding choreography, his acting, and later in his career, his directing. Gene Kelly was a creative genius. He was, as I said before, a perfectionist to the max. He also was known for having a bit of a volatile temper, but really for all of the right reasons. He wasn't afraid to take risks because he knew in his heart of hearts that whatever he wanted to do, whatever he saw up here, would be a major success once it got to the silver screen. He wasn't afraid to butt heads with the movie studio execs, and that was never an easy feat to accomplish because he always felt that it was his modus operandi to fight what he felt for was right. He was a little narcissistic, but again, for all of the right reasons. Blend all of that together and you have the incredible Gene Kelly. Gene Kelly was really a fascinating topic for me to research because I think we all know a bit about Gene Kelly, but I found that there was a lot that I did not know about Gene Kelly, which only made me a bigger fan of his. So, given name was Eugene Curran Kelly, C-U-R-R-A-N, and he was born in 1912 in Pittsburgh. His was a very large, middle-class Irish family. In fact, he was the third of 5 children. His father was a traveling record salesman, and his mother wanted to do everything she could to immerse her children into the wonderful world of the arts. And thank God for parents like that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have people like Gene Kelly. When Gene entered his teenage years, his mother and his brother Fred took over a dance school. Do you think like I do? I think it's really interesting that Gene Kelly had a brother by the name of Fred. Gene hated those years because he was constantly teased for studying dance instead of playing football with the other peers in his school. But besides defending himself against his passion, against his choices, he got his revenge. You know why? Because all of the girls in school absolutely loved him. Why? Because he could dance with them when the football guys couldn't. Where was his father during this period of time? Sadly, he stopped traveling and settled into heavy-duty alleged alcoholism. Undaunted by the choice that his father had made, Gene started getting gigs choreographing local shows and doing a dance act at many local clubs with his brother Fred. So Gene and Fred were dancing together. Interesting, huh? After a while, Gene felt that he was good enough to set out on his own and pursue what he knew in his heart had been his life calling, a career, a very rewarding career in dance. So in 1938, he made his way to New York City. He would get this show and he would get a role in that show, but then his big break would come. And what an amazing break this was. Gene found himself as the lead in a Broadway musical that you might have heard of before. The show was called Pal Joey, of which a major motion picture was made years later. That's probably, if you saw Pal Joey, what you ended up seeing. Unfortunately, the movie wasn't with Gene Kelly, and we'll get to that in just a bit. But the Broadway show, Pal Joey, with Gene Kelly as the lead, was a major success, so much so that it put Gene on the map nationally. Audiences could tell right away that there was something incredibly special about Gene's amazing talent. He literally would light up the stage. He could be on stage with 1 million people, but as his energy would have it, he was the only one you couldn't keep your eyes off of. He was like this light bulb in a sea of darkness. And get this, it was only 2 years before Gene's starring role on Broadway in Pal Joey that he was working with his brother and his mother running that dance school back in Pittsburgh. It just took him 2 years to get his name in lights. And if you think about it, that's truly amazing and rarely happens. But it's a testament to just how talented Gene Kelly really was. So one night, I love stories like this, as luck would have it, the head of MGM Studios was in the audience on Broadway watching Gene in Pal Joey. It was the one and only Louis B. Mayer himself. So what do you think happened? I think you're thinking right. However, if you think Gene Kelly's leap to superstardom was an easy one at this point in time, think again. Listen to this strange tale. Louis B. Mayer wanted to sign Kelly to a contract with MGM after seeing him do his thing amazingly well on stage in Pal Joey on Broadway. Mayer even promised Gene that he would not even have to do a screen test at MGM when Gene would get to Hollywood. So Kelly was excited. He was overjoyed, and when he arrived at MGM in Hollywood, he was shocked to find out that he had to do a screen test. Kelly was incensed, and he refused. Mayer and MGM wanted a screen test. Kelly didn't. Mayer insisted on a test. Kelly continued to say, no, absolutely not. And so right off the bat, things came to an impasse. Kelly fired off a letter to Louis B. Mayer and accused him of being deliberately deceptive. Why? Because back in New York, Mayer said, no, come out, we'll give you a contract, you don't even have to do a screen test. And now when Kelly gets to MGM, he was told from the top down that he had to do a screen test. As you can imagine, Kelly's letter to Mayer wasn't exactly very well received, and a counter offer was proposed to Kelly by the studio. Kelly said, This is what I was promised, and this is what you guys need to live up to if you want me. In a roundabout way, Kelly would get his way, and here's how. Gene was put under contract with Mayer's son-in-law, David O. Selznick. Selznick could not care less about Kelly's dance talent or movie musicals, and Selznick wanted Kelly to be a dramatic actor in films. No music, no dancing, none of that. So if you were Gene Kelly, would you be happy with this new iteration? Of course not. Your modus operandi would be to become a song and dance star, so guess what happened? Kelly would be loaned out to none other than MGM Studios to make a movie musical directed by the one and only Busby Berkeley and starring the one and only Judy Garland, and the film at MGM was called For Me and My Gal. By all reports, as filming progressed, Judy Garland was wonderful to Gene. This was his first major motion picture. She had already been an accomplished movie star at this point in time, so she lovingly took him under her wing. She taught him how to play to the cameras and everything and anything having to do with being a successful performer in the fine art of the movie musical. What were the differences? What did Kelly have to get used to? Well, when Kelly was on stage, as anybody would be, his gestures were larger, his speaking voice was louder, a little more exaggeration, because people aren't sitting right next to you, they're far away, and you're on stage and you have to make your point. But when the camera is this far away from you in a movie, everything has to be toned down. Everything has to be more subtle. And that is a fine art and something not so easy to learn if you're used to performing on stage. So, was Me and My Gal a hit? You bet it was. So, guess what happened? Selznick sold Kelly's contract to, who do you think? Louis B. Mayer at MGM, and now, at last, Gene was finally under contract at MGM. Would Kelly's initial films with MGM be successful? Well, unfortunately not. I told you it wasn't going to be an easy journey at this point. But it wasn't until Kelly was loaned out to Columbia Pictures and would make 1944's Cover Girl, who starred along with him the one and only Rita Hayworth. Wow, what a combo. Kelly would have another hit film. And this would be the film that would make Gene Kelly a film star. So now, all of a sudden, MGM realized what they had in Kelly and vowed never to loan him out to another studio again. Now they realized what they had and they didn't want to share him with anyone else. Was Gene happy about this? Well, would you be if you were offered the following films from other studios but couldn't star in them because now you had an exclusive contract with MGM? You wouldn't be able to star in such films as the movie version of Guys and Dolls. You wouldn't be able to star in the movie version of Pal Joey. Gene originated the role on Broadway. Couldn't do it on film. That must have killed him. And he also couldn't play the lead opposite Gloria Swanson in Sunset Boulevard. That really was frustrating, to say the least. So, what happened next? Back at MGM, Kelly would take a fresh look at the American movie musical genre and tweak it just a bit. That action, taking a fresh look at the movie musical, was something he would be known for specializing in. In fact, it was his passion. To this end, Kelly would literally place himself into a cartoon and dance with Jerry the Mouse. Maybe you remember that footage. If not, check it out on YouTube. It is there. It is amazing. It is from a film called Anchors Aweigh. Actually, Kelly's first choice to dance with him, cartoon-wise, was the one and only Mickey Mouse, but Walt Disney refused, and so Mickey couldn't do it. Later, Disney would end up admitting that what Kelly had created with Jerry the Mouse far surpassed anything Disney Studios could have created with Kelly dancing with Mickey Mouse. This was a movie musical first. No one had ever thought of dancing with a cartoon character before. Check that footage out. You will never forget it once you see it. Before Gene Kelly, when you'd go to see a movie musical, all you'd see was just kind of a routine movie musical. But that certainly wasn't the case when you saw Mr. Kelly. You could almost bet that you would see something fresh, new, innovative, artistic, out of the box, and different. Apart from some political involvement during this time, a string of mediocre films would follow for Gene. Kelly was disappointed, but even more so because he wanted to always be a success. And sometimes that just wouldn't happen. There was another reason why Kelly had to be different when it came to movie musicals. Another guy by the name of Fred. I wonder who that might be. No, not Kelly's brother. We are talking about the other one and only Mr. Fred Astaire. So here's another question for you. If both of you were at the top of your form in the same exact field, what would you do if you were Gene Kelly to differentiate yourself? Well, that's what Gene Kelly was processing, thinking about very hard, probably many sleepless nights at this point in time. Fred Astaire was perfection at creating very fluid and smooth dance routines. So to be different, Gene Kelly decided to do less ballroom and more athletic type of choreography for his routines. The styles of the two really were very different. For example, Kelly would always dance very low to the ground. Astaire would use his entire body. Contrary to popular belief, the two were never enemies. They were actually very good friends with a deep amount of respect and support for one another. So here's one of the many things that Kelly would come up with that was different. A picture with Judy Garland was offered to Kelly, and he happily accepted. He was to star with her in a little film called Easter Parade, but guess what happened? Gene was playing in a volleyball tournament at his house backyard, and he ended up breaking his ankle. Ouch. Could he still do the film with Judy Garland? Unfortunately not. Who would get the role instead? Fred Astaire. But it was actually Gene that convinced Fred Astaire to come out of retirement and do that role in that film. By the way, also on YouTube, you can find footage of the only time Gene and Fred danced together in a movie. Do watch that again. It is nothing short of astounding. Kelly didn't have to wait too long for another role to come his way while his ankle recovered. It was 1949's On the Town. You want to talk about groundbreaking movie musicals? On the Town was it. This, among other things, happened to be the very first time a movie musical was not shot in a studio, but actually shot on location. Where? In good old New York City. Think of how many movie musicals have been shot on location since. West Side Story, Hello, Dolly, many, many others, but On the Town was the first. Gene Kelly would follow with another, one of my favorites, film. You remember An American in Paris? Sublime. I don't think there's another way to describe that movie. The film, of course, was a smash hit and elevated Kelly to the level of superstar. Well deserved, if you ask me. An American in Paris would go on to win no less than 6 Academy Awards. The picture featured a never before feature, try to say that fast 5 times, which was a 17-minute ballet sequence that was innovative and astounding. What movie would follow? Wow, kind of difficult to do something after An American in Paris, but this is what followed. Singing in the Rain, a film that many feel is the greatest American movie musical ever made. At the age of 40, Gene Kelly was now an American movie icon. What few people realize is that Gene was so incredibly multi-talented. And I was getting at that at the beginning of this presentation. For An American in Paris, he won a Special Academy Award for his, get this, I quote, extreme versatility as an actor, singer, director, and dancer, but specifically for his brilliant achievement in the art of choreography. Very few people in Hollywood at the time, or any time, could lay claim to so many different titles and excel at each and every one of them the way that Gene Kelly did. You'd think that Gene would be flying high if it wasn't for the sad fact at this time that the movie musical genre as a whole, all of a sudden, was starting to become a thing of the past. Little did he know that his career would never reach the type of highs that it had up until this point in time. Gene would go on to make Brigadoon, movie musical. He would also go on to make It's Always Fair Weather, and both, unfortunately, would not do well at the box office. So, Gene's first marriage would also fail. Now Gene would marry the wife of one of his closest friends. He had had a major falling out with Stanley Donen, the collaborator with whom he had made so many of his successful films. It was a movie-making partnership that everyone thought would never die. But unfortunately, it did. And the upshot of that was the fact that Gene would end up marrying Stanley Donen's wife in 1960. Kelly would now have minor successes in films and directing in films too. Once he figured he would probably retire from dance, he wanted to go into directing, which I think was a brilliant move. He really needed a major success to keep his career afloat at this point in time. When the Broadway musical, Hello, Dolly, was going to be made into a film starring the one and only Barbra Streisand and Walter Matthau, this would be the vehicle Gene thought to bring him back to the forefront of things. But Gene didn't have a starring role in Hello, Dolly, the movie musical. He directed Hello, Dolly, the movie musical. Was it a hit? Was it the hit that Gene was hoping and praying it would be? And not only Gene, but Barbra Streisand too. No, Unfortunately, it was not a hit. And I bet Gene wasn't happy. Probably Barbara Streisand wasn't happy as well. But you know what? They both knew that sometimes that happens when it comes to the fine art of making movies. It seemed that the movie-going public at that point in time was more interested in seeing films such as Midnight Cowboy and Easy Rider. So things had definitely changed in Hollywood and in America's tastes concerning Hollywood. To make matters worse, Gene's current wife would end up passing due to leukemia in 1973, which meant now that Gene would have to raise their 2 kids alone. Gene had had a daughter as a result of his first marriage and once admitted that he really wasn't there for her. So he wanted to make sure that the same thing was not going to happen again with his 2 other children. He would turn down all work, which would take him out of Hollywood because of that reason. He would even turn down an incredible offer to direct another movie musical, which was shooting over in Europe, one that would end up being a smash hit if Kelly had only agreed to do this one. It was The Incredible Cabaret, starring the incredible Liza Minnelli. If Gene had directed this, it probably would have put him back on top, but he didn't want to leave his kids. So the film's director, Bob Fosse, was put on top after directing Cabaret, a brilliant film. Kelly would marry for a 3rd time, but sadly he could never get back to where he wanted to be in the industry. We would lose this great American personality in 1996 at the age of 83. Someone once said these words about Gene Kelly: just as he confirmed his place as one of the most important talents ever to work in film, he went downhill so fast you never saw him go. But this unfortunate side of Kelly's career is not what we remember about him to this day, thank God, because there are so many incredible things that we remember him for. His legacy will always live on. When he made That's Entertainment 3, that movie, he once said about Irving Berlin, but I think that this can also be said of Gene himself: the song has ended, but the melody lingers on. Just a couple more things before I close. From my Did You Know file about Gene Kelly. Did you know that Gene was once a dance consultant for Madonna's 1993 Girly Show concert tour? How about that? Gene Kelly and Madonna worked together. Did you know that Gene firmly believed that dance is merely an extension of movements that are used in sports? And he was an excellent athlete. So to that end, Kelly always considered himself an athlete that danced. He actually preferred sports to dancing, but don't tell anyone. When Gene was filming the now legendary Singing in the Rain sequence, he was very sick with a temperature of 103. Did you also know that Gene Kelly was one of the only stars in Hollywood at the time that didn't have a drinking or drug issue? He lived to go to work and created something innovative and fresh each and every day. That was his goal. Did you know that martial arts stars Jackie Chan and David Carradine both cite Kelly as their mentor and influence? Did you know that Gene Kelly was consumed with always being at the top of his trade? He had to be number one, but I guess you kind of can figure that now based on this presentation. So finally, Gene Kelly, rightfully so, was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Clinton in 1994. What can I say that I haven't already said about this great American personality? Probably nothing else. I think we've covered it pretty well. But what a gift to us all Gene Kelly was and will always be. He's a prime example of when you believe in your passion to the point where you just got to get it out and share it with the world in the hopes of really motivating them and moving them. You have what will always be the amazing body of work, the gift that Gene Kelly left for you and I. Thank you, Gene Kelly. You will always be amazing to me. And that brings us to a close. This has been Robert Landau, Live Life Well TV host. We hope to see you on another episode on Live Life Well TV of America's Greatest Personalities and all the other shows we upload for your viewing pleasure here weekly. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon again.